Everyone loves a good challenge, and they come in all forms. Some test your reflexes or endurance, while others demand precision or patience. But the craziest ones are speedrunning kind. They push every skill to the limit. BeamNG is no exception to this very simple rule. In fact, you can even say it's the definition of a speedrunning challenge. One small mistake will lead to a failure. But even here, in the land of the perfect turns and bumps used for skips, one map stands on top as the challenge among challenges: Quarterway Enduro. A map so demanding, technical and exhausting that it took 5 months for previous record to be beaten. So today I will tell you how this 25-kilometer map was destroyed not with luck, but with pure skill and sheer determination. Let's start with a quick overview of the previous record. 5 months ago, a fellow YouTuber Skill made a perfect video explaining map itself, and she managed to set the first and only record on this map: 13 minutes 27 seconds. There are 3 key highlights: car, starting skip, and the squeeze. Car will be discussed a bit later, as well as skip, so for now let's focus on the map and its many curves. I invited the current world record holder, ex-pro sim racer turned speedrunner Airwrecks Gaming, who spent dozens of hours on this track to break down every roadblock a potential challenger might face. Without further ado, let's get started. This map has 15 checkpoints, 17 if you count the start and finish, spaced roughly 1500 meters apart. Since their placement create natural sections, we will break it down part by part, but expect a less detailed approach to the easier segments. If you want to understand everything about this map, I highly recommend watching Skill's video on it. The first part is extremely hard, not because of driving, but flying. The section from the start to the first checkpoint takes roughly 30 seconds and features the one and only skip in the run. Later on, we will go in depth about why this is so difficult and how to perform it as cleanly as possible. From the first checkpoint straight to the third, nothing major or unusual happens. Think of this part as a warm-up. The hardest challenge here is the narrow road, which can lead to failures if taken too aggressively. But with some practice, even this section becomes fairly simple, especially compared to what's coming next. The first truly difficult section happens between the third and fourth checkpoints. A small twister that doesn't look intimidating, but believe it or not, it's surprisingly deadly, especially if your car is already damaged. We will go deeper into why this part is so dangerous in the hardest part section, but the basic idea is this: if you are missing your front splitter, you are going to have a bad time. This isn't the hardest part of the map, but it does require precision and an understanding of how your damaged car will behave. Between checkpoints 4 and 5, things are simple, just like before. This narrow path is easy once you get used to it, understand the road, don't panic, and clear it flawlessly, or panic and fail. From checkpoint 5 to 6, the red path begins, and this is where BeamNG's physics start to play a role. At high speed, these freestyle roller coaster-like track pieces can and will damage your car. This damage can range from minor, like a slightly bent bumper, to extreme, like losing a wheel. Here, you must take control and ensure the outcome doesn't end your run. Skill is mandatory. For example, just after the loop, a tilted road will greet you. It might seem easy, and it is, if you take the right side of the road. But if you end up on the left side, even that little bit of elevation can make your car lose traction. And without slowing down, you are guaranteed to take massive damage. And that usually means one thing: restart. Now it's time for the most fun part of the map: dirt. This section between checkpoints 6 and 8 is otherwise uneventful and should be considered a nice break before the truly difficult parts. Up until checkpoint 8, everything has been relatively easy, except for the first skip, of course. But now the real challenge begins. Car damage starts playing a major role here. If you don't have a front splitter, good luck recovering from the small jump ahead, unless you slow down. After an easy tilted turn comes another big problem. You have a lot of speed and need to clear this section at a very specific angle. If you don't, your car will fly off the track. And right after that, another skill check: a near 90-degree angle into a twisted section. You might think that going low is safe, but you will just fall off. And too high, and not gonna cut it either. Your car still doesn't have wings. The middle seems like the only option, right? It's still wrong. There is still too high of a chance of breaking the car. The ideal position is slightly above the middle, around 60-70% of the road's height. Even then, random physics can still influence the outcome. This is an insanely precise segment, and two major tactics will be shown and explained in the most difficult part section. After this nightmare, it's a straight shot to checkpoint 9, where the difficulty ramps up even more. The hypergrip surface and the squeeze. This road type behaves much more differently from normal asphalt or even dirt. It's hard to know what the car can or can't do. The key here is simple. It's better to underestimate rather than overestimate what your car can handle. Treating this surface like asphalt and accelerating normally is a mistake that will send your car flying. And then there is the squeeze, which consists of two short segments. The first one is hard. While keeping as much speed as possible, you must line up perfectly and take a narrow and very short section. Ideal path here consists of following a road pattern. Course line from the left works perfect, and missing it can lead to all sorts of issues. Slight deviation from this line and losing a wheel is not a possibility. It's guaranteed. And remember, at that point car is already damaged. This is also the first part where I will tell you the actual speed. 150 km/h is the rough estimate of what you want to clear this one without issues. Second squeeze is easier if taken correctly. 130 should be enough. But watch out! This part is exact reason why so many runs fail. Going too fast will send you flying with completely unexpected result, and be wary of possible damage. Losing spoiler is super easy here, and I'm talking about both front and back. Hardest part was from checkpoint 8 to 10, and it's now behind. If you have made it this far, the finish is near. Basically, 2/3 of the map is behind you, so what's left? Survival. At this point, if you have been unlucky, car is in really bad shape. One mistake and all that effort is wasted. At first, path will be uneventful until next checkpoint. From checkpoint 11 to 12 you can expect one final real challenge, a twisted road. One bad setup, one small mistake or unlucky damage beforehand and the section will send you back in pieces. From checkpoint 12 and onwards, map is rather straightforward. You might think the snow-covered section is the problem, but surprisingly it's not. There are plenty of small asphalt patches laying around. Use them to redirect your car and you'll be fine. Just watch out for hidden turns. Even the spiraling path at the end is a joke. Full throttle till the win. Just remember that this segment is easy in comparison to previous parts, and keep in mind that doing anything with a broken car is at least twice as hard. Now that the basics are established, let's answer one simple question. How do you practice and improve on this massive uneven map? The best approach is to practice each segment individually, just like in Trackmania on the famous Deep Fear map. Unfortunately, since the developers don't allow checkpoint respawns, the best alternative is Track Editor. This tool lets you instantly access any checkpoint and focus on perfecting specific sections. And here is how current world record holder learned and practiced this track.
So what I did, I did not do the jump at all at first, because I know that's the hardest part and it's right in the beginning. So I will do this over and over and over again. So this is, funnily enough, the last part I tried. What I did is I figured out like the hard parts, which was the jump, the squeeze, and basically everything after the squeeze. The three main components of this map for me. So I usually started from checkpoint 1 and drove all the way until the squeeze and see if I can survive it. And once I've got that down, I tried to do the squeeze itself a lot of times, and obviously the second squeeze as well. Once I've got that down, I started from 11th checkpoint, did the second squeeze, and drove from here until the end basically. That's how I practiced.
But that was just an overview of the map itself. Now let's get an in-depth understanding of the trickiest parts. And since this is speedrunning, skips are part of the game. And I can assure you, difficult is the perfect word to describe them. Funny enough, despite the sheer length of this track, only one major skip is consistently used. And of course, there are more potential skips. After all, the map only has 15 checkpoints, but keeping the car together is nearly impossible. One mistake, slightly too much pressure on the wheels or suspension, and it's over. At some point, Airwreck plans to attempt a segmented run with every known skip, but in a real run, managing even one skip is already insanely tricky. Even that one skip alone has destroyed countless runs, and this is why it's first on the list of the most difficult parts. It is performed by turning around at the start and jumping to the lane below. I make it sound so easy, but remember, this is BeamNG we are talking about. There is nothing easy about even the most basic and simple jump, and we are talking about a huge drop down here. The only real saving grace is the sloped road, which can help with smoothing the impact, and as with anything in the run, there is an optimal way to approach this difficult challenge. The ideal speed here is roughly 155 km per hour, but getting the right speed wouldn't be too difficult. In fact, Airwreck Gaming made a specific tune that would always hit this number at the jump. But the most difficult part is finding the right line to make it as safe as possible. If the jump is too straightforward, the force from the drop will surely hurt your car, if not outright destroys it. And here is how the jump and landing are explained by Airwreck Gaming.
You need to find a line, which is way harder than it sounds, because if you jump, you like jump up obviously, and then you fall down, which usually means that you land pretty hard on the track, and that destroys your car usually. What you want to do is you want to jump so that you land basically next to this track, but still high enough to land right here, so that it's as smooth as possible. If you land anywhere like near here, it's basically over. There's like a 5% chance to survive, but not much more. You wanna like land really low and really smooth, otherwise probably over. So what I did is I aligned my car usually at this line to the left of it, and then I had my left wheel over the orange line, and then I looked at this pillar and aligned my car with that pillar, and then just prayed to land it. You also have to manipulate the car in the air with steering and throttle input, because if you always throttle the car, then it behaves differently if you like stop the wheels or if you turn the wheels. That all influences the car in the air, which makes it a lot harder. Basically, you wanna have like enough speed and pray that you don't break the car instantly.
Next up is the squeeze. A lot can go wrong here, depending on your precision and speed, but it's pretty easy to understand. If you are going too slow, 120 km or less, the car will get stuck. And with low precision, you can say goodbye to your car altogether. This is the shortest explanation you will see here, so let's get to the next part. This 90-degree twister was briefly mentioned in the map overview, but let's take a deeper look at the best ways to conquer it. There are two options: either risk it with low speed or risk it with high speed. Skills record uses the first approach, starting at only 113 km and even breaking down to 80. This is a very risky strategy that can easily backfire if you are not careful enough. And just to put it into perspective, this is a fairly safe strategy compared to the high speed one. I should warn everyone, the high speed approach is a full-on YOLO. Most of the time it will fail, and it almost did in the world record run. Airwreck managed to jump and stabilize, but it wasn't perfect. Far from it. His speed of 150 was pretty good, but his line was not ideal, and he touched the road with his wheels on the right. That's far from ideal, as it leads to the car being unsettled. And if you are curious, yes, 150 was actually slow for this strategy.
I usually go a little bit faster than this as well.
And as usual, this section can cause a lot of damage even if you clear it properly. Now let's talk about the twister section. These are pretty similar, influenced by the same car damage and similar outcome during mistakes. But how does it work? Well, believe it or not, it all comes down to the front splitter, and you can lose it as early as 30 seconds into the run, mainly due to skip. And the issue is simple: the car can't grip as well at the front, making it much harder to maintain speed and stay on the road. This is especially problematic in the middle transition. Braking here is an obvious choice, but with a slightly broken car, grip is lost and you will either slam into the barrier or fly straight off the track. You might think that with a fully intact car the section would be easy, but even then your line matters a lot. If you go too high, you will simply lose contact with the ground and fly off. You want to follow this line and start braking early to clear the turn successfully. Oh, and don't forget to use the slope of the track to your advantage while doing so. There are a few jumps near the end that have destroyed way too many cars. Taking them slow is an option, sure, but it's slow. The best approach is to jump far enough to land smoothly and keep all your speed and then some. They are not even that hard by themselves. In fact, with a fully intact car, they're a breeze. But at this point your car is probably missing a spoiler and your wheel shafts are slightly bent. And that's where the trouble starts. A good car can make the first jump at 100 km, but with a damaged one, 95. The next one, 120 with a good car, 112 if yours is barely holding together. And that's just the start, because from here things get weirder. The real challenge is understanding what your car can and can't handle. How broken is it? At some point that's a really hard question to answer. Just ahead is a massive jump that Airwreck himself never took with a wrecked car. By his own words, he wasn't brave enough to try. That alone should tell you how ridiculous this one is. But with a semi-intact car, you need to hit 150. And then, the final challenge, the ring jump. It's similar to the previous one. A good car clears it no problem at 160 km. But even at 140, it's still possible, just riskier. Oh, and don't even think about taking the easy route. It's way too slow. That was finally everything about the map. Now let's get into the juicy part, the car setup. I know, you probably expect to see the scintilla here, but in reality it's too wide. Like, no joke, you can't finish this map due to the squeeze. Presenting the Sunburst, a car just wide and tall enough to survive, with good aerodynamics and speed. An almost perfect choice right after the scintilla. But not without problems. Main one, front wheel drive. This is a problem only because of how different it is from rear wheel drive cars. It always feels slow and understeery for some reason. Second big one is front spoiler. Yes, the front spoiler, part of aero kit. If you are unlucky enough and this spoiler gets stuck on the wheel, well, let's just say that only a restart will help you with your turning rate. And it happens more often than you would think. But the biggest issue is fragility. Like any car in BeamNG, one wrong move or a weird bump can destroy it. But that's especially true for race cars like this one, specifically after a massive drops, like the huge jump skip. The first iteration of the car was built by Skill and later improved by Airwreck.
So the most important thing is that my car is black and red, which is a way cooler color than white and purple. If you look at the front, I have no lights in there. I also have no front windshield in there. I also removed the seat. Basically, I made it a lot lighter. The aerodynamics change a bit, but you're not that much in the air that it matters a lot. The gain you get from less weight is way greater than the disadvantages you get from being airborne, because you're driving like 13 minutes and you're flying 2 seconds. I changed a little bit the tuning, I think. My car is a tiny bit softer in the suspension, but other than that, I think it's pretty much the same.
And now it's time to watch Airwreck's 12-minute and 55-second run. But of course, only the most memorable parts will be shown, including juiciest, the ending. The skip is something he practiced a lot, but BeamNG physics hit him hard here, and the front splitter was almost completely broken. At this point, losing it completely could have been a blessing in disguise. At around 2 minutes and 40 seconds into the run, that same front splitter almost ended his attempt. Imagine that piece getting stuck on the wheel or under the car. It's also very distracting, especially on such a precision-focused section. The next part at 6 minutes and 37 seconds was explained earlier. Airwreck managed to perform an extremely high-risk jump, saving a lot of time while keeping the car intact, without any further damage. Now let's take a look at the squeeze section. The first one is at 7 minutes and 30 seconds, and it was done almost flawlessly. Note that even with such high speed, he still almost gets stuck. The second one at 8:05 cost him a rear wing. But that's not all. At this same point, he realized three things. The car now has no rear wing, no rear splitter, and that front splitter is still somehow attached. And now the second risky part. The extremely broken car led to the runner ignoring the first big jump. But he was ready to risk it all for the second one. Not enough speed, not enough aerodynamics, and yet he managed to line up almost perfectly. It wasn't enough, and his car flipped. But the physics gods favored him in this moment, and he managed to push through and survive. And now let's watch the last 30 seconds of the run and runner's reaction to finally beating this monster.
Let's go! Finally! It is finally done.
And that was Quarterway Enduro. Wait, before you close this video, what do you think? Would you attempt this run? Or would you rather just watch other people suffer through it? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, be sure to like and subscribe for more speedrunning insanity. Special thanks to Airwreck Gaming, who helped immensely with this video. And make sure to check both his and Skills channels out. And I will see you all in a bit.